Yo, 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 yo. What is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, I want to talk about something that I actually think could be massively impactful in either a positive or shockingly maybe a negative way. And this is going to be surrounding the new KvK season for Age Duality. And what we're specifically going to be talking about is portals. Now, we're going to go through the portal description first. And I'm going to explain to you how potentially, in the worst of cases, portals and how they can be utilized could be extremely lopsided and potentially ruin some KvKs. Now, I hope that the skeptic in me, when I'm reading these, and as we were theory crafting and talking about these on stream one day, when we had a chance to go and look at portals and read the description and do a little bit of back and forth debating with viewers on kind of how we thought they could be utilized and the extent that they could be as well, is all for naught. But I at least want to put forward a discussion because I can only imagine, especially for the G2 pool that has yet to experience this, hopefully you have a better time than what I think might and could happen in some of maybe the harsher settings. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us out. There we go. Because it helps out a lot. Thanks. So let's read through. Starting with Alliance portals and special abilities. Okay, fantastic. Are used to summon legions from alliances in the same camp. Okay, construction. Each alliance can have one alliance portal open at a time. This is very important. We'll come back to this. After an alliance portal has been removed, you must wait 6 hours. Now, it takes 2 hours, essentially, to build, is what COD CS and from what some other people have reported. I'm going to show you a screenshot where a portal is actually being built in less than 2 hours, but that is what I have heard. After an alliance portal has been removed, you must wait 6 hours before building another. And this could essentially be the case where if the timer runs out, if it is destroyed, or if you meet your legion cap, which we'll talk about that in a moment. Features. You can bind one alliance from your camp to your alliance portal. An example of this is you could have Alliance A in Kingdom 1 on your team, binding an alliance, a portal to Alliance 2, who's part of Kingdom 2 on your team. So as an example, that's like being able to say like Kingdom 1, the number 1 alliance can bind a portal to the number 1 alliance in Kingdom 2. And then you can kind of go down from there, right? You technically could have the second alliance in Kingdom 1 bind a portal to the second alliance in Kingdom 2, as an example. After you have selected an alliance, its members can deploy legions through the portal to aid in battle. Each camp has a limited number of alliance portal activations shared between all alliances in the camp. Binding an alliance to an alliance portal consumes 1 activation. And remember, you have a limited number of activations. So regardless, right, you still kind of have to go, there's a hard ceiling. After reaching the required Augerstone chapters, alliances will receive a number of alliance portal activations. I believe it's 8 first, and then it goes up to 20. Now, from what I understand, the activations do not stack, so they will reset. So alliances will receive a number of alliance portal activations. Up to 2,000 legions can travel through each portal. So like we were saying before, if you reach 2,000 at a portal, then the portal will also, right, disappear. Each player can send up to 100 of their legions through the portal. Now, keep in mind, 2,000 legions could be each player sending up to 100. However, that would be 20 players max. Now, they're telling you what the total is, right? So they're basically, and I would have worded this differently. I wouldn't have said each player. I would have said a single player's, I would have said something like the maximum amount of legions a single player can send is up to 100. That's how I would have worded this, because the way that this is worded makes it seem as though every single player could go through when they say each player, and not only that, but that you can use up to 100 legions. I would strongly just recommend fixing the wording. However, next, alliance portals are special alliance buildings that can be used to summon legions. Oh, wait, hang on. Oops, no, already loaded that one. Okay. And then here's the screenshot of an alliance portal that's being built. And you can see the time is 1 hour and 23 minutes. So maybe it's 1 hour 25, maybe it's 1 hour and a half. However, I have also seen screenshots that show it's 2 hours. And again, this is from the first KvK and AOD out of the Gen 1 pool. So again, I don't know if the timings change or not. Maybe that's a thing. However, I know that from what I heard from COD CS and from some other screenshots I've seen from people that are in the Gen 1 pool in this AOD season, I have also seen 2 hours. It would obviously just be nice if that information was stated. I don't think this is like state secrets to me, but okay. So now we get to what I think are some of the appropriate questions to ask. Now, keep in mind, you are going to have a limit, like we talked about as well, right? So it's not as though, you're going to be able to get around on having more activations, as an example, right? No matter what, you are going to have a hard cap on that, and there's not really kind of any getting around that. However, let's get to what I think, like I said, are some of and what I feel could be some challenging points. So number one is that you technically could have multiple warbands per kingdom. You have one portal that is active at a time per warband. If you factor in the 2,000 legions, you could arguably, and this is, I'm a little bit, there's 3 main points I want to touch on here, right? The first one is that you technically could have multiple shells in your kingdom, and you hop from one shell to another, while at the same time you would have to sync your shells up with the other shells from another kingdom, right? So if as an example, if the A kingdom here, the A seed kingdom here, wanted to be able to move around more, they would basically bind their second shell with a B team second shell, and then they could bind their third shell with a third shell, right? Each in their own warband. Again, in theory and as an example. Now, I did confirm with some people in the Gen 1 pool that they are kind of doing this. Now, I don't know how many people are doing it, but it obviously gives you flexibility. Meaning that kingdoms who have more developed shells, developed tech shells, will arguably be at an advantage when you're going into kind of like the shell battle, when you end up getting more activations, right? Now, initially, you get 8 activations on the 3rd Augerstone chapter, which is the Beast, right? So this is like going into Statue 1. On the 6th Augerstone chapter, you gain 24 activations. And I believe this is either ahead of Zone 2 or before Zone 3. I have to look at my timeline. And then it's an invite from beyond. You get 8 activations. And then we get to where am I here? Okay, yeah, then Ember of Hope we get, which is going to be for the level 3 passes, right? So that's going into Zone 3. You get 32 activations there. So I think I have this about right. And then the next ones we're going to end up seeing is Salvation. Now, Salvation is where we're going into level 4 pass for War and Peace. That means you're going to get 40 of these things. That's Salvation, right? Which is before the final zone. You get 40 portals. Now, if it's true and they reset, right, it kind of makes sense how they're increasing the number like zone to zone, if you will, right? So you get a big batch, initial big batch in Zone 2, a bigger batch in Zone 3, then the final biggest batch in Final Zone. Okay. Again, the way I see it, aside from being able to kind of stack the A team on a Zone 2, or even being able to use the A team from multiple different lanes and fronts, being able to go back and forth in the final zone, there's obviously the potential for an extreme amount of flexibility. And some advantages there, obviously, depending on which kingdoms have however many available shells, and then how developed are each of those shells, because the more developed the tech is, especially for those that are farther along than others, that will also create advantages. So that's number one. Number two is that you have 2,000 legions that you can utilize per portal, right? So an example of this on an extreme end could be, at least maybe for like the Zone 2 and maybe the Zone 3 fights, you might see a situation, maybe even for Statue, you might see a situation where kingdoms say, well, we're only going to commit our top 20 players or our top 30 players. Because you have to understand that if you're using 100 players, you're only going to be able to send out 20 legions, which is 4 cycles, 4 batches. Okay. Let's say you have 150 people. Now it's even less. So it was funny because during the stream we were talking about this and this idea of like, well, I wonder if kingdoms will just say we're just gonna like they'll basically prioritize and say, well, we're only going to use our top 20, top 25 players that are online right now. Once they are exhausted, then we'll move down the list and now we'll let our top 25 to 35 or 25 to 40 players. Or maybe some kingdoms just say, listen, we're only going to let our top 50 players go first, but then and they'll use the first portal. And then we'll pop a second portal on the second shell, and then the other people can go there, right? So it's going to be very interesting on how kingdoms prioritize portals and how they're using them and the players that might get first opportunity to go and hit. Because I almost wonder if that could negatively impact in some way, because some players are getting ready for a zone 2 opening or statue fighting or zone 3, even if you're on the B teams, right, coming in. How will that affect player participation and engagement? It's like if you're on right when the passes are opening, but you're being told, no, I can't go and participate because maybe your kingdom is limiting in some way. Now, maybe they don't, and they just end up binding a couple shells already off the bat, and they just say like, listen, well, we're going to have an A team and a B team and a C team or whatever it is. And then, you put your top 50 players on the A, in the A shell. Next are going to go in the B shell as an example, whatever it may be. Right. And maybe you'll kind of fight like that. Like I said, there's a lot of theory crafting, right, and technicality here on kind of how you're going to play this out. So anyways, it is interesting. The third point I'm going to bring out is what I guess kind of ties into what I was saying, right, is that and I kind of hit both here on the head when I was talking about the 2000 legions and the potential strategy there, along with kind of sending the strongest first, right? And again, kind of ties in there where will we see a situation where like the lower power players or the ones who are not the strongest or who are not at the top of your kind of, PvP stat list or board, will they kind of get pushed back? Will you see them not prioritized as much at any point, right? Because of some of the portal limitations that you have. How many people are willing to go and also, and I think this is another dynamic that's connected, is how many people are willing to go and fight in undeveloped second and third shells? Will you even see second and third shells being utilized, either under or overutilized, even regardless of how developed the tech is there? Will people just not care? Or will they try to mainly fight from the main shell, which probably is max tech at that point, and then any other max tech shells that they have? So it also begs the question, right? If you have kingdoms that have 2 or more max tech shells or alliances that they can kind of bind and utilize via the portals. Now, it may not be that impactful at statue opening, right? But once you get to zone 2, zone 3, and zone 4, now it's starting to ramp up, right? So anyways, those are my thoughts on kind of an early indicator on something that I think could be a contention point. Now, I hope it's not. And I hope the kingdoms just kind of figure it out and it's not as potentially serious as it may seem initially on paper. And like I said, maybe the potential concerns, worries, cautions that I'm bringing up or kind of thinking out loud, hopefully it's something that doesn't come to pass. And, again, maybe it's just, a little bit of maybe over worrying, if you will. And that'd be great to see. Now, I'm curious for those of you who have read through, if you're listening to me, for those of you that are obviously here listening to me talk about this, is what I'm saying connecting with you at all? Is there any similarities that you're finding? Maybe you're now thinking of something else off of what I said, or it's like, oh no, this is kind of how I'm interpreting. It's a little bit different than what you are, boss. Let me know what you think. Is this an issue? Is it a non-issue? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments below. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.